This is the Redux News. A new law in Virginia will lead to the confiscation of firearms of legal owners. Now I need you guys to watch this video in its entirety and share on all social media platforms, as this is an attack on the Second Amendment right. Now, gun control advocates have been hard at work trying to push an array of new restrictions, including universal background checks, assault weapons bans, and red flag laws that would allow authorities to take guns away from people deemed dangerous to themselves or others. Well, there's two aspects of newly proposed legislation that are the most troublesome: red flag laws and the banning of assault weapons. In order to understand what an assault weapon ban in Virginia would look like, you need to understand what the state defines as an assault weapon. The state defines an assault weapon as such: a semi-automatic centerfire firearm equipped with a folding stock or equipped at the time with a magazine capable of holding more than 20 rounds, or capable of accommodating a silencer or a suppressor. Politicians and activists love using the word semi-automatic, since to the untrained ear it resonates as automatic, which then likens an image of a machine gun, which is not the case. This assault weapons ban would also allow guns that have a folding stock to be confiscated no matter if the firearm's magazine hosts less than 20 bullets. While the assault weapon ban will work to achieve getting most guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands, the legislators have red flag laws right around the corner to sweep up those other firearms that don't meet the threshold of assault weapon. Essentially, all that is needed to have a weapon confiscated under red flag laws is one single person's opinion about another. What that means is that someone, in fact anyone, can make a claim that someone is a danger to themselves or others, and then people with guns come take your guns. As if the Virginia Governor Ralph Northam's wholesale attack on law-abiding gun owners wasn't enough, the disgraced public official and his Michael Bloomberg-bought allies in the General Assembly now want the state's hard-working taxpayers to foot the bill for their unconstitutional schemes. The budget bill, HB 30, includes an appropriation of $250,000 to carry out a host of gun control measures that Northam and his anti-gun allies hope to enact. The $250,000 is appropriated to the Corrections Special Reserve Fund in order to provide for the increase in the operating cost of adult correctional facilities resulting from the enactment of Northam's gun control measures. Among the enumerated laws that this allocation is meant to fund is a ban on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms, the criminalization of private firearms transfers, and gun confiscation orders issued without due process. The laws that have already been passed, along with those which have been introduced for the next legislative session in Virginia, would ban commonly owned semi-automatic firearms such as the AR-15. Further, the ban would extend to common firearm parts and would not grandfather current owners. So if you live in Virginia and own an AR-15, once the legislation is signed by Northam, you would be required to surrender the weapon or face arrest and incarceration. Law-abiding gun owners who are found in possession of a, quote, assault firearm could be convicted of a Class 6 felony, which is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. The laws also contain, probably intentionally, vague language, adding words such as any characteristic of like kind. These words appear after each list of prohibited features throughout the law, which adds ambiguous language subject to interpretation by either law enforcement or judicial officials. Do not think for a minute that this is not done on purpose. Further, the legislation says, quote, assault firearms includes any part or combination of parts designed or intended to convert, modify, or otherwise alter a firearm into an assault firearm, or any combination of parts that may be readily assembled into an assault firearm. Over 100 local governments in Virginia took a preemptive strike against the Democratic gun control threat by declaring themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. The declarations renounce sheriff's obligations to enforce new gun controls passed by the incoming leftist. Governor Northam is vowing consequences for counties that refuse to enforce new gun controls, and Representative Donald McEachin suggested Northam call in the National Guard to force compliance. In an attempt to appease citizen resistance, Northam suggested there would be a ban on only the sales of semi-automatic rifles. He would allow gun owners to keep their current AR-15s and similar rifles as long as they registered them. Otherwise, they must surrender their rifles. Now I'd urge Virginians not to fall for the registration trick. Knowing who owns what weapons is the first step to confiscation. Northam further warned, if we have constitutional laws on the books and law enforcement officers are not enforcing those laws on the books, then there are going to be consequences, but I'll cross that bridge if and when we get to it, end quote. Now, long guns of any description are rarely used in violent crime. FBI uniform crime reporting data breaks down homicides by weapon type. Now, back in 2018, the FBI reported that there were 5 times as many individuals listed as killed with knives or cutting instruments than with rifles of any kind. The data also showed that rifles were listed as being used in less homicides than blunt objects, such as clubs, hammers, etc., or personal weapons, hands, fists, feet, etc. A 1997 Department of Justice funded study of the 1994 federal assault weapons ban determined that, at best, the assault weapons ban can have only a limited effect on total gun murders because the banned weapons and magazines were never involved in more than a modest fraction of all gun murders. A 2004 follow-up Department of Justice funded study came to a similar conclusion. The study determined that AWs, assault weapons, and LCMs, large capacity magazines, were used in only a minority of gun crimes prior to the 1994 federal ban. Relatively few attacks involve more than 10 shots fired, and the ban's effects on gun violence are likely to be small at best and perhaps too small for a reliable measurement. Now, for the so-called universal background checks, they do not stop criminals from obtaining firearms. Background checks don't stop criminals from stealing firearms, getting them on the black market, or getting them from straw purchasers. Now, a straw purchase is a criminal act in which something, especially a firearm, is bought by one person on behalf of another who is legally unable to make the purchase themselves. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 75% of criminals in state and federal state prison who had possessed a firearm during their offense acquired the firearm through theft, off the street, underground market, or from a family member or friend, or as a gift. Less than 1% got firearms from dealers or non-dealers at gun shows. ATF has reported the most frequent type of trafficking channel identified in ATF investigations is straw purchasing from federally licensed firearm dealers. Make sure you share this video and help preserve the Second Amendment. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe.